In Syria, election officials began counting votes cast the previous day in the country's controversial presidential election. Supporters of President Bashar al-Assad celebrated in the streets of Damascus ahead of the election results. The international community has largely dismissed the election, which was held amid a civil war that has killed an estimated 160,000 people. In Pakistan, tensions are high in the city of Karachi following the arrest of the leader of a secular political party in London. Altaf Hussain, the leader of the Muttahida Qawmi movement, has been living in exile in Britain since the early 1990s, but was charged with money laundering on June 3rd. Hussain's MQM party has very strong support in Karachi, where shops were closed and some violently protested his arrest. In Afghanistan, election officials announced that security forces will be unable to provide security at 184 voting centers across the country when the presidential runoff election is held on June 14th. The unsecured voting centers, which were not identified by the Election Commission, represent 2.7% of the total number of polling places in Afghanistan. The Election Commission did not say why Afghan police and military forces are unable to provide security for those voting centers during the runoff between candidates Abdullah Abdullah and Ashraf Ghani. In the eastern Afghan city of Jalalabad, several civil organizations held a protest against Pakistan's shelling of Afghan territory and cross-border attacks. Hundreds of people demonstrated against the attacks and demanded the Afghan government take strong action against Pakistan. A similar rally was held in the Afghan capital Kabul the previous day. In Kyrgyzstan, several hundred people blocked a major highway in the southern Alai district, and an investigation has been opened into the beating of a policeman there. The protesters are accused of severely injuring the policeman on June 3rd as he came to negotiate with them. The 300 protesters called for the release of former parliament speaker Akhmatbek Kaldebekov, who is being held on financial corruption charges. In Moldova, members and supporters of the opposition Socialist Party protested against the government's plan to sign an association agreement with the European Union. The dozens of demonstrators who rallied in front of the government building in the capital, Chisinau, called for a referendum to be held on closer relations with Europe. Moldova is due to sign an EU association agreement in Brussels on June 27th. In Tajikistan, the National Library opened an exhibit of manuscripts by the famous Nuruddin Abdurrahman Jami. Jami is recognized as a great scholar, mystic, historian, and Tajik and Persian poet who lived in the 15th century. The head of Tajikistan's National Library said some 60 manuscripts of Jami's poems and books on philosophy are included in the week-long exposition. And that's the video roundup from Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty.